Check, check, check. I just want to make sure that I am being heard. My sound is working, and people are getting my streams. So please share this video and click that bell button up in the top right corner so you actually get the notifications that my streams are happening, so you can tune in live and jump in the live chats and here and just that way I can answer people's questions live and connect with my audience live. I'm going to be doing a special stream tonight to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm not going to do a long stream right now, I don't think, but I'm probably going to try to jump on here later tonight. That way I'll give everyone some heads up and some notice that they can spread the word, and I'm going to try and spread the word through some other platforms so we can get a bigger live audience here tonight. I think that would be a good idea. I wanted to play some popular news and kind of talk about some statements and some things with people and just see where it goes. We're going to start with this. Recently, Solar Marshall is back. Notice I gave you your wrench back, and I do apologize for the podcast the other day and the train wreck those secret space program insiders can be, and Trump. I want to just play this real quick, and everyone's.
Before you leave office, will you let us know if there's aliens? Because this is the only thing I.
Before you leave office, will you let us know if there's aliens?
Would you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on there? So many people.
He says, will you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on? So he's referring to the Roswell UFO incident in 1947, which happened in July. But listen to this.
I know it sounds almost ridiculous, but it's actually the real question.
It sounds like a cute question, but it's actually, there are millions and millions of people that want to go there, that want to see it. I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
So you're saying you may declassify?
Roswell's an interesting place. So he doesn't even know what the difference. He's clearly confusing Roswell with Area 51 if you listen to the statements. And I pointed this out on Twitter because all these people were just going nuts over this, being like, oh my God, UFO summer has begun. And everyone's just saying that, Trump's going to be the one to disclose aliens and the reality of all this stuff, these secret access programs and all that stuff in the Wilson leaks, which, by the way, those Wilson leaks, I read them finally. I haven't been paying much attention to that because it was kind of like old news. It's been around for about a year now, I guess. But I read that, and there's no way I can picture Eric Davis. I've watched tons of videos of Eric Davis. Let me find some videos of Eric W. Davis. I've listened to tons of videos of this guy, talking about not this Eric W. Davis. This Eric W. Davis. This guy right here with the glasses and the Hawaiian shirts always, with the mustache. Yeah, so this guy, I can't imagine him writing those 15 pages of notes, and I can't imagine they're real or related to anything real. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about science and where we're at with this UFO phenomenon, and where I think we should be looking for UFOs, because obviously, if there's a crash retrieval team, let's just talk about some of the history, right? So, National Security Act 1947 took effect on September 18th, right? Roswell event was July 1947, a couple months earlier. So the whole argument within the UFO community is that Roswell happened, and that a couple months later they passed this National Security Act to basically keep the hush on this technology or whatever the heck they discovered there. All right. So then we look at the history of Area 51. I have this article on the history of EG&G, which is really useful. I'll post that as well. Or actually, the one I'm talking about, Solar. Why don't you post that thing on the history of EG&G? But EG&G was basically started in 1947. It was initially some of the technology for the guys that ended up developing EG&G were developing technology for the atomic testing site out at Los Alamos. So they were blowing off bombs, and they needed like a high-speed camera to capture the resolution of this imaging, so they could measure the power in these nukes and the expansion rate and how much area it would wipe out, and other effects, so for the scientific aspects of studying nuclear technology. So EG&G developed a lot of that stuff. They actually built their first operating facility out at Area 51 in 1954, if you look up the history of it. So it's unlikely that that's what the whole theory is, that obviously Area 51 didn't exist in 1947 when Roswell happened. So that's not where it was initially brought. If there was a recovery at Roswell, which is in New Mexico, Area 51 is in Rachel, Nevada. It's a different state. Trump doesn't even know that subtle difference. So the idea that to think that he knows anything and is going to disclose anything is kind of ridiculous. And anyone who thinks that more stuff is going on is kind of clueless, and to believe all this QAnon stuff, they have that this LARPing that's kind of going around saying, I really think that there's a wing of the White House. It looks more like he's pandering to the UFO community for votes to get reelected, and also that he's what was I going to say? He's not only pandering to the audience to get reelected, but he's also I forget what I was going to say, but I've talked to people in the military. Like I did a job, a contracting job in Rhode Island for a guy who was a Navy white shirt, and he basically, I asked him, well, what's the deal with Space Force? He's like, oh, that's just a trumped up thing. It's nothing new. That's really outside of the Star Wars SDI program. We had most of that technology, and we were doing that research back in the '80s and stuff with the Star Wars SDI Reagan Star Wars program. So that's what I've basically gathered is going on in the inside. The people inside the military, aren't on this whole idea that Space Force is, he's basically using this QAnon, and I think that QAnon whole thing is a White House insider. The White House is definitely influencing and using that QAnon thing to basically influence more of the conspiracy crowd, because there's such a large conspiracy culture. It's gotten to the point where they can't hide the bullshit that goes on. Where Snopes. I had this Snopes article admitting, to the people in the Obama administration using, child trafficking foreign immigrants, children immigrants, and trafficking them, and all this stuff about Jeffrey Epstein and the pedophilia, and it's just gotten out of control. They can't hide the fact that there's big time conspiracies and that these people are controlled by all this fucked up, filthy rich stuff that they're doing. It's tough to hide all the stuff that goes on at the top now. I Aliens, show yourselves, or aliens. So anyways, aliens. I don't think that Trump knows anything about the subject. He has no access to these kind of special access programs. Whoever wrote that Wilson document release that the whole UFO community has also been salivating over is obviously not. It's obviously like a beginner UFO researcher who knows a couple things about this stuff and weave together this story with these characters who he doesn't even know or understand well enough to copy their voices. God, I could have faked a better document than that Wilson document. So, anyways, I want to talk about some of the other things that we should look for if we're looking for crash retrievals and crash retrievals. Because I studied the whole Roswell thing. I think some of the witness descriptions of the Frank Kaufman is one witness. I think his people call him a liar and whatnot. Roswell witness, but his descriptions were rather interesting of the materials that he saw, and this memory foil stuff, and also the idea that you walked inside this craft and you could see through the walls to the outside. It was like this invisible stuff, and this bakelite material that Jesse Marcel Jr. claims he held on the floor of his dad's. His dad stopped before he brought this stuff back to the military base on his way to the base. The intelligence officer for the first one on the U.S. Air Force on the scene stopped at home and showed his kid these pieces before going home. And I always thought that the material science was the most, if there's any material descriptions of stuff that would be of interest. But we can't really gather much through limited witness descriptions of a couple ranchers and people that were intelligence officers who knew about P180s and B-2 bombers and the aircraft of the time, and not much about metamaterials or quasi-crystals or any of the nanomaterial stuff that we're learning about now. So I want to talk a little bit about some interesting minerals and materials. There's something called the Mohs hardness scale. I think people should be familiar with that. Mohs hardness scale, and I should blow up this screen so people can see. So the Mohs scale of mineral hardness was based on 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being the hardest specimen that the Mohs had at the time, or Frederick Mohs. The hardest specimen he had at the time, which was a diamond. So diamond was the 10 on the scale, but then they found that there's another type of diamond that's only occurs in 2 places on the entire Earth, in these massive deposits and nowhere else, and there's kind of different geological theories, and also an extraterrestrial hypothesis for how it got there. And that's the most interesting part, because not all the scientists, jump on this, ancient alien kind of bandwagon, but there are a few. And this is, if there's any kind of ancient alien stuff that I would entertain, it might be this extraterrestrial hypothesis for how these carbonados only appear in these 2 places, Central African Republic and Brazil, central Brazil. Very interesting. And if you were going to build a galactic megastructure, you'd probably want a really hard material, really rigid and durable material to build that out of. And one of the things that I was talking about was this polyhydrodicarbene. I can't even pronounce it, but it's a really interesting material. And welcome, Callum Baker. First time plugging into your live. I'll try to answer questions and stuff, but hey, I can't read everything and everyone's question. But I'm glad that the people that do tune in, and I have a couple people like Jeremiah and Solar watching to tell if anyone with good information does come on, and stuff. But anyways, this is a printable polymer. It's a printable diamond, and really interesting technology coming out in Journal of Macromolecular Science and Journal of Material Science. Yeah, they're basically found a way to 3D print diamond, and so if I was going to 3D print my craft, I would probably print it out of something like this. Although this might be rather expensive, and but if I guess if you have infinite power and infinite energy and you're a type 3, it doesn't, that really doesn't matter. Odd isotopic ratio, which means that's why there's this extraterrestrial hypothesis that there came from somewhere else. So very interesting stuff. I lost the stream. Oh my god, what's going on? Error, YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming and will receive buffering. Weird. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, as soon as this text brought up in the live stream. So I'm not going to go, maybe we'll wait for tonight and see if my internet gets shut down again. I'm going to shut my video off for now. See if that helps. And I'm going to maybe change the settings to the output. No, I can't do that because it won't change the recovery file. I can't change it once I started the stream. All right, is everyone back? Am I still lagging like fuck, getting mega interfered with? I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna keep going. Hopefully, people can follow. Basically, want to talk about. Yeah, I pointed this out on Twitter. I've been blowing it up on Twitter. If anyone wants to check out all the stuff I've been posting, I've been talking about Mike McCulloch and everything that's going on with quantized inertia. So he's looking for metamaterials and nanomaterials to basically build this cavorite material. And cavorite is it's kind of like a material from Star Trek. It's not really, or actually, it's from The First Man on the Moon, a novel by H.G. Wells. It's not a real word. I knew it was a fictional word. It's not Star Trek, but it's even older. So cavorite is this material which has this natural anti-gravity property, and he's kind of talking about describing this property in this material, and is kind of needs help from nanomaterial scientists and stuff to find a material that could be suitable for this. Of course, I'd point to optical nanomaterials and metamaterials, but we want things, 3D printing things or molecularly printing things is very expensive, and so far metamaterials are really, really expensive to produce, at least the ones that we know of. So it's been a real hard barrier to getting this to get to this technology to really make this breakthrough, and the next real breakthrough in our technological development that's going to bring us to the stars and beyond. And anyone who's not ready for it needs to wake the fuck up, because it's happening. So anyways, these metamaterials, I've been trying to research ways of producing this stuff, and I came back across that someone reintroduced me to some research that I had rejected before, years earlier. So it goes to show you that we shouldn't ever go completely reject stuff. But this Grebennikov guy, right? So if you look up Grebennikov, Victor Grebennikov, I think it is. Viktor Grebennikov, and I have some links on this in the description too if people want to check it out. But there's a whole bunch of nonsense stuff that I found first, which is what you usually find when you start searching for it. But it was this platform thing that looked like a bicycle handle mounted to a wooden board, and he was floating on it, and it was like, and there was this bullshit description that I had originally read, and I was just like, nah, this is nuts. How could insects, like gluing insect wings to the bottom of this craft, this thing produce like this? And then I did a little bit more. Then someone brought it up to my attention about, well, we're talking about optical nanomaterials, and let's talk about ones that appear in nature, and things that do appear in nature, and well, it turns out that it's just all insects are built out of this stuff called chitin, this material called chitin, which this gentleman talks about in this another video that I posted on I posted this on here. What's his name again? I gotta find his name so I can give him credit. Okay, this is it, right? Dan A. Davidson. Dan A. Davidson is the guy, and
it's a man named Grebennikov from Russia.
So Dan A. Davidson is the guy that did this research, and he did a presentation on this originally. So insect chitin. Oh, this is some other interesting stuff that I want to come back to. Insect chitin is basically this. It's a very simple chemical. It's kind of related to cellulose, but it's got a nitrogen, and it's a good building block for a lot of this material, and it occurs naturally because insects produce it. But if you do it in different layers and different types of, how metamaterials are, is the layering and the structure of the material itself is what gives it its properties. So nature figured out by adding different layers of this stuff, they could get colors and other effects, iridescence, which were useful in attracting a mate or whatever use they had in their evolutionary history. But beetles were considered, the scarab beetle was considered sacred by the Egyptians, and that was also something that people have pointed out. It's interesting that this iridescence, and it's an optical nanomaterial. It's insect chitin, which acts as an optical nanomaterial, which creates the coloration and the iridescent effect on the, and that's completely natural. So I was like, this is so cool, because if we could find a way to take this thing out of the DNA, and the DNA out of the insects, and build our craft out of this kind of stuff, it might be a much easier way to grow this material biologically, like a crystal. People have been mentioning, they don't 3D print their crafts, because I was posting about 3D printing their crafts, and I've been, people are like, they don't 3D print their crafts, they grow them biologically. And so that got me thinking about this too, and I'm just connecting a lot of cool stuff lately, and some of the people we've been talking to have really connected a lot of neat stuff for me. We were talking about the Feynman disk paradox, with this anti-gravity stuff, and we're talking about why this asymmetry happens in all these experiments, and we're going to connect it for you, because this is a real big breakthrough that happened recently, and it's going to be, I want to just, yeah, it is anti-gravity. This chitin stuff is anti-gravity. It's a low-level warp drive, and these dragonflies and bugs used it. In fact, I'm gonna play a little video for people, and then I'm gonna get people excited, and then I maybe ruin their fun like I did on Twitter already with this. But yeah, let's play this video. Now check this one out. Have you seen this one yet, guys? Well, I posted it online, and I'm pretty sure it's a dragonfly. I don't know, because I mentioned before that they got Nanomaterials and invisibility cloaks, and carbon nanotubes and all this other stuff. Like, either that or it's some kind of drone or some experimental test craft maybe, but it kind of looks, just the flight characteristics look more almost like a dragonfly. Like, it comes out, it kind of turns this way and then darts that way, real quick, like it's, but again, it's not solid proof. It's a cool UFO video, and it got a ton of likes in just 18 hours. It got 35 likes on Twitter. So hey, I guess it was worth getting it. If some people would start paying attention to some of this stuff, maybe. But it's interesting that even if it is a dragonfly, right? The UFO debunker cop out. If it's not a craft, it's a dragonfly. Dragonflies are interesting in themselves because they have a type of anti-gravity in their wings with this chitin material, and the actual electromagnetic effects that it causes. And this is really cool because this is the article about anti-gravity hidden in nature, and it talks about these structures. So these have multi-cell structures of the insects, and they use an electron scanning microscope to zoom in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times into the structure of the wing, and you find these little corpuscles, which look exactly like these like cones, and they look exactly like nano cones. And it's so interesting to think that nature kind of designed this and figured this out on its own through the understanding how these slight optical properties worked on the electromagnetic field and electrostatics. And it's interesting that more scientists are figuring this stuff out. Here's an article from July 5th, 2018. Spiders can fly hundreds of miles using electricity. So they use this ballooning, the mystery of ballooning. It's a centuries-old mystery of how these spiders can travel thousands of miles. They literally spin these webs, and they go way up into the upper atmosphere and float, and go super far, like like migratory birds far. And these people who studied it, and they're like, "Well, how does it happen? How does the forces can't explain it." They've done all these models of the physics on the forces of these spiders, and just like Grabenikov was doing on the forces of these dragonflies. He was measuring, saying that they can't possibly lift themselves with those small wings with the weight, the body weight, and everything else, and the physics aren't right. There has to be some kind of other force that's contributing on this, and it's a low-level warp drive, and it's created by like a little bit of electrostatic voltage that's created through like almost a piezoelectric effect of the flexing of the wings at the same time. So it turns out that when you electrify these things, when you electrify them and you bring them to even higher energies than they're typically exposed to in this natural environment, that you get even more pronounced and interesting effects. So I'll show the video of that real quick with some of the wings that he did. So he built these materials and coated them with this stuff and then hit them with these frequencies. and we're learning more about these
and
frequencies.
enhanced stealth.
Um, so there's all kinds of people that are learning about these frequencies and sharing the information on this technology, which is good. Look at this. This is all good stuff. So anyways, this kind of was connected to this Project Skyvault stuff we were talking about with this, how we noticed we were rereading the Project Skyvault stuff. These high rise times, it's a sawtooth wave that they use. And that's important because they have this high rise time and slow fall time. And I'll go back to the quantized inertia stuff because McCulloch is, oh, this is great stuff. And this is partly, you know, all these people have been throwing it together, and Jeremiah like basically laid out the quantitative assessment of how this theory works. And I'm like, this is exactly what, you know, Mike McCulloch is saying in his papers. It's exactly what all these other people are saying, like this guy Cloud Poher we were just talking about with his photon lattice negative mass stuff. He's saying with these things, and he calls them universons. He calls them universons. And if you read up his papers and all this theoretical stuff that he's talking about with these universons, his theoretical universon particles, that's basically UNRRA radiation and Rindler horizons. So UNRRA radiation, the UNRRA effect, and this is stuff that people need to start like blast into the physics professors and science professors to really like be like, well, this is the change that's coming. This is really going to happen and really going to change everything when we fix these problems in physics and understand that we don't need dark matter. We don't need a lot of these complex models in superstring theory. We're going to have a different set of physics. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be very similar to actually the real core physics of this is, if you look at it, it's going to be real similar to you know what Wolfram's doing with the Wolfram Physics Project, which I thought was amazing, right? So Wolfram, I have to bring this up real quick with the Wolfram Physics Project. He's trying to find this theory of everything. He came out with it because of COVID-19. He's like, oh, this work's unpublished, and I haven't shared it yet. But you know, now that everyone's locked down and stuff, I'm gonna share this new theory and all this new documentation and this model, this classical models with the possible computational representation of a fundamental theorem of physics and mathematics. That basically all of physics is just computation of information, and it can be reduced to a purely mathematical form and a computational mathematical form. And the new mathematical form of that computational language is the hypergraph or graph theory, which is exactly the theory that I had spoken about with my my colleague in Hover Brothers. Here's the page right here. Ken Griggs, if you remember Ken Griggs, Ken Griggs came up with this Phoenix theory with all this graphs, showed the particle graphs, you know, and I'm watching Wolfram do this and making video after video on YouTube. I've been following a lot of his live streams on this. Well, it's something great to listen to while I'm at work. But he's been going off. I commend him for, you know, challenging the academic community and publishing this through YouTube and new forms of sharing information and not having to go through the technical gauntlet of these academic journals, which honestly it's comprised of 50-plus-year-olds that really ought to retire from the field and let the new people take over, because they're just like holding to this old dogmatic beliefs. It's basically like the Roman Catholic Church, and they'll crucify and ostracize any Galileo that comes along and says anything that questions the official dogma of string theory and dark matter and all this bullshit that doesn't work and doesn't lead to real answers or good testable predictions. Quantized inertia does. It leads to new propulsion technology. We need to accept this and pursue it, because it's gonna lead to way more awesome things and technology. So anyways, I want to talk about this Wolfram Physics Project. He's been going off and going on interviews trying to get all the experts in the field to do this. And one of the guys he talked to was actually Ken Griggs' advisor, which I thought was really cool. So Jim Gates is was actually Ken Griggs's advisor, and Stephen Wolfram interviews him here. A discussion with Jim Gates. 2 hours and 41 minutes. I know you people don't have a lot of time, but put it on at some point. Save that one. Put it in the back ear somewhere, and watch it at some point. Because Jim Gates was, I think, that was his PhD advisor. So Jim Gates was his PhD advisor. His advisor as an undergrad, because I had to go review my notes with Ken. His undergraduate advisor was Sasha Migdal. Sasha Migdal. I think this is him. Yes, Sasha Migdal. And he's got very basic quantum gravity theorist, which kind of led him to like the quantum gravity stuff that of entanglement and all that Phoenix theory stuff with entanglement. So one thing about the physics project with Wolfram, he's got a lot of things mixed up. He doesn't have the right models. He's got the right mathematics and the right computational language, being developed, but he doesn't have the right model yet to like really explain physics and what physics is and really understand it. I think Ken does. I think Ken really did. The more I review his combinatoric relativity theory paper that he posted and what he taught me about this theory so far, everything works. Everything works so far, and I'm interested for him to go the step further with his other published work, because he said he's got thousands of pages written showing how to get everything in physics from this more fundamental theory, but he's been sitting on it, and I don't know. I think that Ken might have some stuff. He might have been on to this, but and that kind of confirmed it for me 2 years later when Wolfram came out with this whole Wolfram Physics project, and now he's interviewing Ken's advisor. Definitely something to keep on the back burner if you haven't dug into that Phoenix theory particle map of physics, because it might be. I'm trying to connect the math in there to Mike McCulloch's stuff on his publications on this quantized inertia stuff, and very interesting what's going on in physics right now, and the people that I'm talking to, and the information that I'm learning, or that I have learned, and the people that I have talked to. So in any case, lots of PhD physicists with lots of published work in academic journals too. So it's not all complete hogwash, including this Feynman disk paradox, which comes from Feynman himself, one of the greatest minds in physics. So yeah, I want to talk. Maybe we should jump. I'm going to open up Skype, and we'll let some see if we can get some of our friends on here if they want to call in. But yes, so there's lots of interesting. So I want to talk about a couple of more. Let's take it another step further with this about the theory stuff. So I started with those polariton. So this coherent. Here's some Cloud Poher stuff, or one of the guys connected to Cloud Poher linked me to this. Coherent propulsion with negative mass fields in a photonic lattice. All right, now this is from, I think, China. So China's been working on this. This was October 2019. They have these layered nanomaterials. They have this coherent, like that. They're working on these ways of basically a way to create propulsion, but they don't have the theory completed to fully understand that. Like the thing is, there's all this physics, right, that links up to the same effect, right? So this quantized inertia, this M drive, this Woodward effect, right? Woodward effect, and the M drive, and which led to that whole quantized inertia theory that Mike McCulloch's working on, which is, I think much better than Woodward's theory on how this effect works. So basically, the idea is that these masses, the idea is that these masses are basically breaking the light barrier. They're breaking these information horizons. You get this sawtooth wave with this super rapid rise time and slow fall time, and as we saw in the Skyvault experiments, it slams this electron up past that Rindler. It breaks that Rindler horizon, loses the information. The information gets lost behind that that Rindler horizon, and then it slowly comes back down. And then so there's an asymmetry in the actual inertia of the craft. So you can have this inertial propulsion from basically from nothing, and that's how it fucking works. So the Woodward effect is in the M drive. That's all the same shit. This is directly related to Podkletenov's impulse gravity generator, again, which worked on the bilayered superconductor disk that he describes. He describes the making and the construction of the disk in part 3 of 5 of the interview I have posted with him from 10 years ago. He talks about that layered disk. We've known about the layer for a while now. That layered material has been talked about by Hal Puthoff, and others about that material that they recovered, and with the terahertz wave frequencies that hit it. Of course, in the frequency spectrum, there's a gap in the middle of the frequency spectrum. If you look at the frequency spectrum goes from radio waves all the way to gamma rays up here, and the visible spectrum is like right smack in the middle, and a little bit below the visible spectrum, between infrared and microwaves, is this terahertz waves range, and there's something called the terahertz gap within that range. It's in the middle of the electromagnetic spectrum, and there's like a gap. There's actually a physical gap in there, which is really interesting. Because this relates to a lot of the theories that we've been having, but it's really like illuminating. It's literally see the light. We're seeing the light because we're understanding that gravitons are actually hidden inside of photons. That photons are in reality like part of what gravitons are and where gravitons come from. And I'll get a little bit more into that with some of these other. I don't want to get into all the ways we figured this out yet, but I'll start you with this 30 years of squeezed light. All right, so squeezed light is an interesting phenomenon. What happens when you're squeezing light is that you're basically you're condensing these quantum states. So the quantum state of a particle, according to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So let's bring that up. Heisenberg uncertainty principle would be momentum times position or energy times time. So there's two versions of it. So it's either the momentum and the position of the particle, x and p, or it could be the energy and time of the particle, of a wave, e and t. And basically it says that, if you know one too precisely, the other one you don't know at all. And if you it's no way to know both of them within a certainty of I times h bar, or this Planck's constant. You can't certify anything within this limit of this Planck's constant and this limit of this quanta, which that's kind of where we think the terahertz gap is. That everything kind of bigger than this is the long waves, the longer waves, and all the higher frequencies is everything shorter than that, and it's sort of like this break in the spectrum of where matter kind of sits. And there's essentially that there's noise. The whole vacuum is created, quantum vacuum, right? So the quantum vacuum is a bunch of noise. And what you're doing with these squeezed quantum states in this 30 years history with 30-year history of squeezed light. Okay, so squeezed light. We're talking about squeezing light. Because this is really what I think it gets into here is a type of squeezing of light, which, well, this is a kind of a different effect, actually. I believe this is a different effect than what's going on with that Rindler horizons, but it's similar to the UNRWA maximizing the UNRWA radiation and bending space. It's about bending space-time locally. So about this whole, let me find the start from the beginning on this because I'm kind of getting lost a little bit. There's so much information, man, and I'm trying to condense it all, and there's so much else going on. I'm trying to read the chats too. But reactionless drive. Okay, if you're looking up reactionless drive, okay. So there's all this work for the reactionless drive, and if you look up the reactionless drive, you'll get all the stuff on Hal Puthoff talking about, everyone here should be familiar with Hal Puthoff. He wrote a bunch of papers with Bernard Hayes, and he worked for Lockheed Martin. He was their like head theoretician for a lot of this space, reactionless drive stuff, advanced propulsion tech, and he wrote this paper about that you need to bend the space-time locally and just this polarizable vacuum approach to general relativity, where if you bend the space-time locally, you can create an Alcubierre warp drive. So how do you bend the space-time locally? Well, one way to do it is by using squeezed light, because what squeezed light it does is it quiets down the vacuum noise around a area, and it also isolates that. So basically, it when you quiet down the vacuum noise, you reduce all the photon action, all the photon noise gets reduced. And photon noise is essentially that's what gravity is. Gravity communicates through that whole in the information network. It's an exchange of information, and mass is, according to this new theory, that mass is a blocking of information by these horizons, so that when you have a mass there, it's basically this thing that it creates these Rindler horizons that blocks information flow, or blocks the photon from traveling through it. So that if you are able to quiet down all this noise that's happening, you're able to control gravity, because that noise and all this photonic noise, this communication of it hitting a massive object creates gravity. That's what produces gravity. That's what gravity is, theoretically. This is like what we've been trying to figure out and really wrap our head around. What the fuck is gravity? And we got some really interesting experiments coming up. We need a lot of people's help in getting these experiments together and setting things up, and we need a massive amount of help in sharing this information, because we have tons of papers on this stuff. I have a group now, collaborated, who've been researching a lot of these different things on converging topics, and we've all got this different backgrounds that are just coming together and sharing this information in mass. And we all have tons of, we need a database, and we're talking about getting this set up. And I talked about it in the last stream, and I've gotten a lot of people contacting me, and including people from network security. Places that have given me this where is it? I gotta download this image. Hey, I'll download this flow chart. Boom. Oh, there it is. Boom. So here we go. So this guy put a flow chart together for the data. We have unsourced data and disinformation, and vetted data and experimental data, and papers and everything else. We have all the data that comes into this decentralized sharing thing. So we need a way to basically a decentralized sharing, so like a peer-to-peer sharing network. There's a couple different stages to this, is what I've figured out. This is someone else's idea. This is different from what I've kind of thought of it. The way I thought of it is that there basically needs to be three processes, three stages to the process. The first stage is the collection, and the massive data is getting it all together. The second process is dissemination and getting it out to everyone else in the group, and copying it, so it can't be, that's where the peer-to-peer stuff comes in. And then then comes in the hosting. We need a centralized host. We need a place where this stuff, we need decentralized backups everywhere. So everyone needs to be the network for the decentralized backup. Everyone watching this needs to when this goes down, you need to be going on there and go out and buy another hard drive now to get ready for when this happens, because you're going to need like a terabyte to do the data dump, to have a backup copy, so that we all have everything shared, so that way we can condense that terabyte down to a couple gigabytes of the most purest, awesomest, hardest hitting information, and really and then we can throw out the rest, and not throw out the rest, but we'll still have the rest. But yeah, that's essentially what the idea is: a big data collection, and then we'll we can see what we can bring together from there. But talking to a couple people about setting this up. Basically, what I want to do is have a couple different people build servers, a couple like 3 or 4 different servers, so that way we have all these backups. So that way, and then I'll tell all the people in the first group, we'll branch out slowly. I'm gonna get it set up with just me, and in each one of these servers completely different, and then I'll give each person access to a different server, and then I'll go around and just mix I got a system of how I'm gonna basically do it, and it's gonna be a little bit different than what this is, but we're gonna basically like get all the information shared around these 3 servers, so that it's going to bounce around and collect, and we're going to create a big database that basically it's going to be three multiple backups. There's going to be dozens and dozens of backups. It's going to be branches of backups from each one, so that we can get it. It's not that any of this information's isn't already public knowledge. A lot of it's already been out there. Just that it tends to have a habit of disappearing and getting scrubbed and shadow banned and everything else, like a lot of the stuff that we talk about. And a lot of people have been complaining that they don't get the notifications for the live streams anymore because of the stuff that we're talking about. And it's been crazy. Yeah, I should go grab a beer. I don't have any UFO beer today, but the database is going to be key. We needed a centralized kind of location where we can share all this information and pool everything together, because there's tons of stuff coming out right now about this. Yeah, I think this is really interesting. These Central African Republic and Brazil are those 2 places, and I want to know if anyone has any information on crash sites and stuff related to that. I'll have to go back through the live chat and read more carefully and see if anyone's come up with anything. I couldn't really find much with the searches that I did, and that's both troubling but also kind of promising, because negative results aren't always a miss in this, as you know, because a lot of times they hide the truth. They hide the truth in weird ways like that. But anyways, a lot of this stuff is no longer being able to be hidden. It's room temperature superfluidity in a polariton condensate. That was in June 2017. These polaritons are basically squeezed light. It's light that's been squeezed to the point where it pops the vacuum and creates this antimatter pairs. You can literally turn light into matter, into antimatter and antimatter, and then turn it back into light and kind of keep it resonating in this sort of state through these exciton polariton pairs and these entangled photon lattices, which is really interesting stuff. I think it has a lot to do with the how the craft operate. If we had a way to make this nanomaterial, like we had an insect, we could grow an insect craft with the skin of the craft being like layered chitin, which works on the right on the right frequency range, and then we just hit it with some lasers or a Tesla coil or something, some kind of parametric oscillation, or Xenic surface waves or something, either parametric oscillator or some Xenic surface waves. Somehow, I don't know exactly how we're going to power the surface of this thing, but basically you get a smooth surface of this layered nanomaterial, and you hit it with these waves and enough of these or lasers, and you can get it resonating to the point where you could create squeeze light or negative mass on one side of the craft. And of course, if you squeeze the vacuum noise and eliminate the vacuum noise by squeezing the quantum states on one side of the craft and not the other, it creates a difference in the speed of light around the craft. So if you're invisible but there's a difference in the speed of light on one side of your craft, what does that do to the quantum vacuum and the nature of it? It will literally move you through space, like a reactionless propulsion drive. So there's a lot of stuff we're learning about the theory on this and how so people figured this out and how it works. but they're really not tuned into like the full theory of the fundamental theorem of physics, which is the ultimate goal, I think, here. It's a little bit far off for us to get there, but I think Wolfram is sort of on the right track. He was definitely doing the right thing, listening to Jim Gates. Obviously, Jim Gates knows some stuff if he taught Ken Griggs in grad school. So it's definitely some stuff to keep definitely confirmation for me that hey, I'm not just some freaking crazy stoner who drinks UFO beer. So I'm glad that we've come this far, and I thank all of you guys in the audience for being here to help along the way and contribute information, contribute monetary support. Thank you for the donations, the $5 that got donated here by Gamer49. If you want attention funding, go debunk Keshe Foundation spacecraft. Oh yeah, Keshe Foundation. Yes, donate money to Keshe Foundation. We promise anti-gravity and free energy. These technologies are very suppressed, and we just need more money. Yes, so donate to Keshe Foundation. I have a 7-hour video which shows pretty pictures and of my Venn diagram-based theory. Please donate, and yeah, I don't know. Keshe Foundation's good, man. But anyways, I'm sorry I shouldn't make fun of the accent, but it's too crazy. Yeah, I should do like a big debunk on Keshe Foundation of some of this stuff, but it's just too much. Like it's not even a point. Like that's what I started doing. I have a debunk written on Bob Lazar I put together. In fact, I might just go and put it all on Bob Lazar Debunked, which needs some serious updates because I was doing research for the script, and I debunked a couple things that were in the Bob Lazar biography by doing some further research. Like this wasn't him. That wasn't him as a kid. I said it was him as a kid, but I got the years off and the location off. So this was in Woodland Hills, in California. He moved to California after he graduated high school in Long Island, so it couldn't have been when he was a kid. This was right after high school, probably 19 years old, that he was riding this bike because his neighbor was this guy that created the rocket engines that he put in his car and on his bike. So everyone thinks that Lazar invented and built this rocket engine himself. No, he just got it from the guy next door and strapped it to his bike and onto his car with help from the guy next door. But yeah, and it was very inefficient, and all the engineers at Los Alamos laughed at him, and about why? What's the point of just drawing attention to yourself and having flames shoot out the back of your car, wasting gas, because it wasn't any more efficient than gasoline engines of just the vehicle itself. But anyways, Robert Lazar, I have this whole page on a lot of the research that I talked about. I want to, the real research that I've found that was going on out at Area 51 at the time, and some cool stuff related to that. So I really should update this page, and with all the information from the Hover Brothers page and all the information from this quantized inertia research. Man, we got to get this database together. There's just too much stuff. It needs to get all together in one spot, and I that's what my vision for Hover Brothers was when I created it and set it up, and that's what I kind of want it to be. And I want to update this page with all the the projects, and I gotta update all this, man. This is I gotta get some time off from work and do this or something, and I need some help. But yeah, let's talk. And I got a couple guys I'm working with on this, and we're gonna get this figured out, and I'm looking forward to it. Within the next couple of months, it's going to be amazing. Disclosure is freaking absolutely happening. We're going to be researching and, experimenting with all this technology and really getting to the bottom of what's going on there. Why the layered materials? Oh, it's because, you know, it's creating Cooper pairs, or it's because it's creating polariton condensates, you know, or it's because the layered material is necessary for this, you know, differential effect in picking up There's all kinds of theories going on right now, and we're closer than ever. We just have to like get a couple tests to like really narrow this down and figure it out, and we're gonna have an engineerable, buildable device and effect within a couple months if we get the right team together. It's freaking going down. This is disclosure, and it's freaking amazing that people are thinking that, you know, that Trump's going to do it with the wave of a pen. No, man, you want disclosure, go watch every PBS Spacetime video. Go watch all these Wolfram Physics Project videos. Read every page on Wolfram Math World, all right? PBS Spacetime, okay? Really great place. 244 videos of pure, you know, physics education that will bring you up to date on where like science is on a lot of these topics of this other stuff. But also check out Math File. Watch all of Math Files, or Number File. Sorry, Number File.
I want to tell you about a very famous number that you've heard about before.
Oh yes, we all love your numbers. This is what I watch to go to bed. No, I'm just kidding. It is really quite interesting, and they do a good job on these videos to describe all these really cool mathematical concepts and stuff. So, watch. You know, this is stuff people think that you're just gonna have disclosure and everyone's just gonna wake up, and waking up isn't just like, it's not like just. I'm sorry, I just have to just destroy your one-dimensional model of knowledge real quick and prove to you that knowledge is three-dimensional. It's not one-dimensional. It's not. There is no awakening point. There's no like, oh, I just woke up. No, you just broke. You broke through a massive lie. Is all you did. It's not waking up. You just broke through one massive lie, and there's so many that you still need to like figure out and break through. So. It's really, I'm sorry, those people that have that, oh, wait, we're going to wake up and the disclosure is going to happen, and the disclosure is a wave of a pen. And even if, and that we had this person in the group that was saying that, oh, I want to bring disclosure and be the one to like lead all this. And it's like, there's not one person, it's a group effort, and it's actually a process of learning, because even if disclosure happened tomorrow, we'd have to test and verify and vet it. Even if they came out and said, yeah, we have this craft, and, you know, well, here it is, which they wouldn't, because, you know, we'd have to figure out how it worked. And if we can figure it out how it works, then so can, you know, Russia or China, and you get into that whole conflict war. And I'm pretty sure that China and Russia have already, you know, are already figuring this out on their own. And pretty sure also that they've watched. They have intelligence agencies or agents that watch my videos regularly, and have contacted me. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. It makes me wonder, because I did have the FBI call me and ask me about one person that wasn't interested. It approached me as an interested investor. So it's freaking crazy, man. Yes, we need to get this information to Elon Musk and Richard Branson. That would be awesome. I keep blowing them up on Twitter and stuff, you know, because that would be awesome to see a couple billionaires who are really interested in fixing and helping and changing the world, and to really get behind this technology, because this is the answer to overpopulation. It is the answer to the energy crisis, the water crisis, to the transportation crisis, to the, you know, to global warming. You know, if you don't believe in global warming and you think that's a conspiracy by the oil companies or whatever you believe, then certainly you can believe that petroleum consumption is out of control, and we're polluting the environment with burning gasoline, regardless if CO2 is bad for the environment or good for plants or whatever your arguments are. It's just ridiculous. There's all these issues that we can fix. We don't need cars. We don't need gasoline engines. Though gasoline engines would be cool. We talked to Skylar there. I want to get back on to talk more about those engines that he was talking about, and because engine technology might need to, still there might be need to be a transition period first before we quite get here. We still need to, there might be a small transition period that we need to do some other stuff. But yeah, I want to talk about this. We were talking about that Feynman disk paradox, and so that's different than the Faraday paradox. But it's essentially, I asked a friend about this, and he mentioned this Wimshurst machine. Another colleague within the group, the Wimshurst machine with these two Leyden jars, and this is a very interesting machine, which essentially it's like a low-level warp drive. There's another type of low-level warp drive effect going on here, and that's also what we think was kind of happening in some of these Biefeld-Brown experiments that he was first discovering. The Biefeld-Brown effect is maybe some type of low-level warp drive after all. Not these lifter craft or the ion wind craft and stuff, but these more his gravitator. The Biefeld-Brown gravitator is the one we're more interested in. This sort of device with these free plates that are insulated, and why these free-floating metal plates that aren't grounded or connected to anything, and why that might work for the effect. When they apply a voltage across the entire system, like this. But anyways, I really think that, I did a poll recently on Twitter as well, which I want to talk about too, because I love doing polls. I do like one every week, or two, one or two every week, just to see what people are saying. I did a poll recently on, where is it? It's got to be down here. It was on what people think the originators, where they come from. So if there's UFOs or there's secretive visitors, where do they come from? Where's the home that they came from? So my prehistory breakaway civilization got 30. It was a tie, 30%. The two top votes were another dimension and a prehistory. I would have voted for another star. That's the one I thought should have won. Interstellar makes the most sense, I think. That it's, that there's got to be, a couple. The recent estimate was like 36 stars in our galaxy with intelligent life on it. So something within our galaxy. Intergalactic's just way too far. It's just too out of crazy. That's like type 3 or above. Type. I guess there's nothing above type 3. So that would be type 3 for another galaxy. Type 2 would be another star. Of course, another dimension would be like type whatever above, I guess. So that's what some of these people think. The interdimensional. Maybe it is interdimensional, but still, maybe they're traveling from other stars when they're doing it interdimensionally. I don't, see where this other dimension could exist. There has to be some kind of world or home world or some kind of place where they were born in this other dimension, even if there is another dimension. But it's just nuts. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there for now. Why don't you guys tune in later tonight and share this so that we can have a definite time for this stream. Let's do it at 10 o'clock. 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, see you later.